In a serene forest, Zhao Tianlei, labeled a loser, faces ridicule and bullying from three hostile thugs. They mock his love for Chen Yu, jeering that their boss is also after her and that Zhao has no chance. With sneers and taunts, they assert dominance, shoving him around as he struggles to defend himself. Just as the tension escalates, a commanding voice cuts through the scene. That's enough. Lin Mu, a notorious troublemaker from Central China Business College, steps forward. With a calm yet intimidating demeanor, he towers over Zhao Tianlei, warning him to stay away from Chen Yu. To emphasize his threat, Lin forces Zhao to the ground, making it clear that any future attempts will come with consequences. After delivering his warning, Lin signals to his group, and they leave without another glance. As Zhao pulls himself together, brushing off the dirt and adjusting his torn clothes, a cold determination flickers in his eyes. Revenge, he mutters, isn't something to rush. It's best served cold. Wincing from the pain but unwilling to dwell, Zhao glances at the time and remembers his struggles. As an orphan burdened with paying university fees, every second counts. Hurrying off, Zhao suddenly slips on something hidden in the grass, sending him sprawling to the ground. Frustrated and aching, he looks around and hears an unexpected mechanical voice. Host Zero has been activated. Waiting to scan. Alarmed, Zhao scans his surroundings for the source of the voice before noticing a glowing ring on the ground. The voice identifies itself as Virtual God, explaining that Zhao has been chosen for a mission of survival. It warns of an impending biovirus outbreak in 16 hours, predicting chaos that will engulf the world. Zhao, skeptical and convinced it's a trick, dismisses the claims as absurd. However, the voice persists, encouraging him to test the ring's power. Intrigued despite himself, Zhao slips on the ring. Instantly, an intense glow surrounds him, and a wave of energy surges through his body. His mind is flooded with vivid images of destruction. Fires raging, panicked crowds, and monstrous zombies wreaking havoc. Stunned, Zhao struggles to make sense of the vision, questioning its reality. The voice calmly explains that the images are fragments of the apocalypse already stored in his memory. Refusing to accept the situation, Zhao tries to remove the ring, but a sharp pain burns his hand, and the voice warns of fatal consequences if the bond is broken. Resigned, Zhao admits his fears. He's never been a fighter. The voice reassures him, introducing a storage space filled with resources and weapons accessible through the ring. He can get all he needs from it, but only when he earns coins from killing zombies. It also reveals the virus evolution fluid, a tool that can enhance Zhao's abilities, but comes with a dangerous condition. It only activates after infection by a zombie. The risks leave Zhao conflicted, but with time running out, he knows he must act. The sun dipped below the horizon, marking the end of a day and the beginning of Zhao's race against time. Determined to prepare, Zhao gathers supplies and returns to his university dorm. His warnings to his roommates about the apocalypse are met with disbelief and laughter. Some mock him, while others dismiss him outright, leaving to stay at an internet cafe for the night so that they can prove that a zombie apocalypse won't happen. Only Wu Bin, his close friend, hesitates before deciding to trust Zhao. Together, they barricade the room, stacking furniture against the door and arming themselves with makeshift weapons like brooms and mops. After staying up all night, Zhao and Wu Bin sit amidst their makeshift barricades, surrounded by upturned furniture, and armed with brooms and mops, they remain on edge, their exhaustion evident. Wu Bin jolts awake, startled by the silence, only to find Zhao still on high alert. Exhausted, Wu Bin jokes that Zhao is overreacting and insists there's no danger. Suddenly, the dorm is filled with panicked screams. Shouts for help echo through the hallway, growing louder and more desperate. Zhao grips his weapon tightly, his expression shifting to one of fear and determination. The moment he had been dreading has finally arrived. The sudden banging at the door startles Tianlei and Wu Bin, snapping them into action. Wu Bin stumbles backward, his face pale with panic as he questions what's happening. The screams outside grow louder, drawing their attention to the window. What they see sends chills down their spines, a courtyard in chaos. Students and staff are running for their lives as zombies chase them. Many lie motionless on the ground, while others are overtaken by the monstrous creatures. The gruesome sight of their classmates turning into zombies leaves Wu Bin in shock. He collapses to the floor, trembling with fear and disbelief, repeatedly questioning how they could possibly survive. Tianlei, trying to stay calm, reassures Wu Bin that their best chance is to stay hidden until the chaos subsides. He promises they'll find a way to escape when the time is right. Wu Bin hesitates, his voice trembling as he brings up Zhang Jun and Li Liang, their missing roommates who are still outside. Tianlei, his face grim, shakes his head, warning Wu Bin that rushing out blindly would only lead to senseless deaths. Assessing the situation, Tianlei notes the zombies are slow and haven't yet evolved. He reasons that most of their classmates might be in the self-study classroom, as it's morning, and with some luck, they could have found shelter there. Wu Bin suddenly remembers Shen Qinyu, a famous personality who had planned a movie shoot at the playground that morning. He panics, realizing the crowd gathered there is in grave danger. Tianlei is skeptical at first, recalling that Shen Qinyu was supposed to be abroad for a campaign. However, Wu Bin explains her flight was canceled due to bad weather, forcing her to change plans at the last minute. Hearing this, Tianlei's emotions intensify. Shen Xinyu isn't just a classmate, she's someone he secretly admires. The thought of her being in danger ignites a determination within him. Gripping a rod tightly, Tianlei declares his intention to go after her, ignoring Wu Bin's panicked calls to stop him. Determined to act, Tianlei recalls a fire axe in the corridor on the first floor. He instructs Wu Bin to hold the barricade firmly and not open the door under any circumstances, promising to return if he survives. Wu Bin, unwilling to let Tianlei face the danger alone, steps forward and declares his intent to help. His voice firm, he reminds Tianlei of their friendship, vowing not to hold him back. Tianlei pauses, a faint smile of gratitude forming on his face. Together, they prepare to step out, cautiously checking the peephole. A zombie staggers aimlessly in the hallway. Without hesitation, Tianlei swings the door open and delivers a powerful kick to its head, sending the creature crashing to the ground. "Don't look back," Tianlei shouts as they bolt down the stairs. Wu Bin follows, clutching his weapon with trembling hands. On the first floor, Tianlei smashes the emergency cabinet and grabs the fire axe. With his weapon in hand, he leads Wu Bin outside. The scene that greets them is horrifying. The courtyard is littered with bodies, blood pooling around lifeless students and staff. Survivors scream and cower as zombies close in on them. Tianlei tightens his grip on the axe, his frustration and determination growing. Wu Bin, overwhelmed by the carnage, turns away, suppressing the urge to vomit. Suddenly, he notices something unusual and calls Tianlei's attention to a stage in the distance. On the stage, a group of their schoolmates is huddled together, surrounded by zombies. Among them is their class monitor, desperately trying to maintain balance. Wu Bin points to the stage, his voice cracking as he urges Tianlei to act. Tianlei's heart races at the sight of his classmates, clinging to survival. His mind floods with questions, but urgency takes over as he notices a parked van in the corner of the courtyard. A plan forms quickly. He'll use the vehicle to create a diversion while Wu Bin helps the classmates escape. Approaching the van cautiously, Tianlei finds the keys still in the ignition, the owner likely having fled in panic. He climbs into the driver's seat and starts the engine. With a roar, the vehicle accelerates straight into the horde of zombies, scattering them like rag dolls. Wu Bin seizes the moment, calling out to the stranded classmates and urging them to leap down. The class monitor approaches him, asking if he saved them. Wu Bin shakes his head, explaining it was Tianlei who risked everything to lead the zombies away. Concerned, she points out the swarm of zombies chasing the van, fearing Tianlei won't escape. She attempts to intervene, but Wu Bin stops her, reminding her to prioritize the group's safety. He instructs her to lead the others to the library while he goes to help Tianlei. Meanwhile, Tianlei's van runs out of fuel. Surrounded by zombies pounding on the windows, he quietly slips out and hides behind a nearby tree. Clutching the axe, he catches his breath, preparing for his next move. Suddenly, a cold hand reaches out for him from the shadows. Startled, Tianlei raises his axe, ready to strike, but a panicked voice stops him. It's Wu Bin. Relieved, Tianlei lowers his weapon. Wu Bin confirms the classmates reach safety in the library, praising Tianlei's bravery. Tianlei brushes off the praise, stating his actions weren't heroic, but driven by resolve. Concerned, he asks Wu Bin about Shen Xinyu. Wu Bin reassures him, suggesting she's likely safe with her bodyguards. Determined to regroup, Tianlei and Wu Bin decide to head to the library. As they navigate the campus, Wu Bin accidentally kicks a bottle, drawing the attention of nearby zombies. The two sprint toward the library as the horde surges after them. They bang on the door, shouting for help, but panic erupts inside. The class monitor demands they be let in, but Qianhao, a student, argues it's too dangerous. Tensions rise as Qianhao slaps the class monitor, silencing her protests. Despite the fear, the class monitor remains determined to help. Outside, Wu Bin shouts at Qianhao, but Tianlei calms him, urging him to focus. Striking down approaching zombies, Tianlei signals Wu Bin to follow, ready to execute their next move. After a tense chase, Tianlei and Wu Bin outran the zombies, finding a brief moment to catch their breath. Wu Bin, guilt-ridden, apologized for his mistake, blaming himself for their close call. Tianlei reassured him, explaining that Qian Hao wouldn't have opened the door regardless. He holds a grudge, Tianlei pointed out, clenching his fist. With determination burning in his eyes, he vowed to make Qian Hao pay for his selfishness and the harm he caused the class monitor. Wu Bin expressed frustration at their failed attempt to enter through the front door, but Tianlei stayed composed, suggesting they try the back door. Carefully climbing through an open window, Tianlei unlocked the door from inside, allowing Wu Bin to enter. Smirking, he urged Wu Bin to keep moving toward the main hall, where other students were gathered. Inside, the students sat scattered, their exhaustion evident. The class monitor, though clearly in pain, brushed off concern while her friend criticized Qian Hao for refusing to open the door for Tianlei and Wu Bin. Despite her anger, the class monitor's disappointment grew as she reflected on the group's silence. If someone had spoken up, she thought, this could have been different. Qian Hao, seething, confronted Ye Tong. His tone dripped with sarcasm as he mocked her for not facing the zombies herself. Before she could respond, a furious voice cut through the room. In an instant, Tianlei delivered a powerful punch, sending Qian Hao flying backward. Qian Hao stared in disbelief, demanding to know how Tianlei got inside. Wu Bin, consumed by rage, grabbed Qian Hao by the collar and berated him for leaving them to die. Defensively, Qian Hao pushed Wu Bin back, claiming his actions were for the group's safety. The tension escalated as classmates began debating. One agreed with Chen Hao, saying his decision might have been justified, while another urged everyone to focus on survival instead of blaming each other. Wu Bin accused Chen Hao of manipulation, but Chen Hao's smug grin only fueled the anger in the room. Breaking the tension, the class monitor approached Tianlei and Wu Bin, her expression filled with gratitude. She thanked them for their bravery, admitting the group wouldn't have survived without their actions. However, when Tianlei noticed the bruise on her cheek from Qian Hao's earlier slap, his expression darkened. Without hesitation, he marched toward Qian Hao and struck him across the face with a sharp slap. Qian Hao recoiled, his rage barely contained. Before he could speak, Tianlei slapped him again, harder this time, sending him staggering. Tianlei's cold glare bore into Qian Hao as he warned him never to harm or exploit anyone again. With his warning delivered, Tianlei turned and calmly took the class monitor's hand, leading her away. She blushed, her heart racing at the gesture, while Qian Hao, humiliated, vowed silent revenge. The trio found a quiet corner to rest. The class monitor's gaze lingered on Tianlei, her heart conflicted. Wu Bin, noticing her red face, asked innocently if her injury still hurt. Embarrassed, she shook her head, stammering that it didn't. The tense atmosphere in the hall grew worse as hunger began to gnaw at the group. One girl, leaning against her boyfriend, softly voiced her need for food, sparking frustration among the others. A heated argument broke out, with accusations flying between students, each blaming the others for their situation. The commotion alarmed Sitong, who stood to intervene. However, Tianlei grabbed her hand, cautioning her against stepping into the chaos. If they ask you to take responsibility or provide food, you won't be able to, he warned. Reluctantly, she sat back down. Meanwhile, the group's desperation escalated. Students tore through the hall, throwing books and cabinets aside in search of supplies. When their search yielded nothing, one student proposed heading to the curator's office on the second floor, hoping it might hold resources. As they climbed the stairs, their progress was halted by a burly figure blocking their path. It was Lin Mu, a notorious troublemaker with his gang close behind. Lin Mu's commanding presence filled the room as he coldly questioned their intentions. Downstairs, Tianlei's group watched the confrontation unfold. Recognizing Lin Mu, Tianlei's expression hardened, his sharp eyes fixed on the gang. Nervous whispers spread among the others, warning of Lin Mu's violent nature. Despite his fear, Xiao Hao stepped forward, explaining their dire need for food. Lin Mu, unimpressed, kicked Xiaohao brutally, sending him sprawling. His violent display left the group stunned, a clear message to anyone who might challenge him. Xiaohao stumbled down the stairs after Lin Mu's forceful kick, landing with a series of heavy thuds. Concerned, his girl and the others rushed to his side, their faces filled with worry as they checked on him. Lin Mu, calm and composed, sneered, calling them naive and delusional for thinking the world was the same. He declared the staircase a boundary, marking the upper floors as his territory. Any attempt to cross it would result in serious consequences. Mocking the group, Lin Mu hinted there was plenty of food upstairs, but it came at a price. Something valuable in exchange. His smirk widened as he suggested that if one of the pretty girls among them was willing to serve him, he might consider sharing. Fixing his gaze on the girl with blue hair, he offered her a piece of bread, taunting her about staying with someone as insignificant as her current boyfriend. Leaning closer, he suggested she'd never go hungry if she chose to be with him instead. Her eyes flashed with fury. Without hesitation, she slapped the bread out of his hand, sending it tumbling to the floor. Lin Mu's expression darkened, his pride stung. He raised his hand sharply, delivering a strike that left the room frozen in stunned silence. Without missing a beat, he grabbed her hair, tightening his grip just enough to make her wince as she tried to pull away. "You've got some nerve talking back to me," he sneered, his voice cold and sharp. Sutong's firm voice broke the tension, commanding Lin Mu to let her go. Lin Mu turned to her, his expression shifting into cruel amusement. He mocked her, recalling how she used to challenge him back when teachers enforced the rules. Now, he sneered, there was no one to protect her. With a cold tone, he declared his intent to humiliate her. His lackeys stepped forward, their grins full of malice, as one of them asked mockingly if she'd comply herself or needed help. The tension shattered as the sharp sound of an axe striking the ground echoed through the space. Tianlei stepped forward, his figure illuminated faintly by an ominous glow. Sitong stood behind him, her eyes wide with fear. Tianlei's voice cut through the room as he demanded Lin Mu stop. Lin Mu's lips curled into a cruel grin as he laughed, taunting Tianlei for playing the hero again. He reminded Tianlei of their last encounter, warning him not to interfere unless he wanted to face the consequences. Tianlei met his gaze with unwavering determination. He stepped forward, gripping the axe tightly. "If you think you can do as you please like before," he said, his voice steady. Without warning, he swung the axe into the wall beside him. His glare intensified. "Then go ahead and try." Lin Mu's lackeys faltered, their bravado fading as they eyed the embedded axe. Lin Mu scowled but took a step back, muttering irritably, "The second floor is mine. Don't cross the line." With Lin Mu's warning hanging in the air, he and his lackeys retreated toward the stairway. Once upstairs, Lin Mu barked orders to block the stairway and stop anyone from sneaking up. Frustration lingered from his clash with Tianlei, fueling his anger as he demanded his lackeys arm themselves properly. Meanwhile, downstairs, Sitong appeared shaken. Wu Bin approached her with concern, asking if she was all right. She dismissed his worries but looked troubled, muttering about how unrecognizable their classmates had become in just a few hours. Tianlei turned to her, his tone serious as he warned her to be more careful and not put herself at risk. Wu Bin reassured her with a confident smile, promising that he and Tianlei would always protect her. The group stood in silence, taking in the grim reality. Lin Mu had hoarded all the food and water, leaving them to fend for themselves. Without sustenance, survival in their hideout seemed unlikely. Sitong's stomach growled, breaking the silence. Wu Bin stifled a laugh. "Looks like even your stomach can't take Lin Mu's rules anymore," he teased. Sitong blushed, stammering an apology. Tianlei remained calm and suggested they eat. Wu Bin and Sitong exchanged surprised glances. "Eat?" they echoed. Tianlei led them through an isolated hallway toward the building's back door. Wu Bin hesitated, questioning how Tianlei planned to find food in an empty corridor. Tianlei didn't respond and simply told them to guard the entrance while he searched the canteen. Despite their protests about the danger, Tianlei reassured them with a confident smile before heading out. Moving carefully, Tianlei avoided shuffling zombies as he scanned the area. Reaching the canteen, he spotted 2 abandoned bags next to motionless bodies. Inside, he found food and quickly began gathering supplies. Activating his ring, he murmured, "Storage space, start!" watching as the items disappeared into its glowing compartment. He realized the food wouldn't last long if shared, so he focused on collecting as much as possible. Suddenly, a faint groan broke the silence. Tianlei turned sharply, his eyes widening as a zombie lunged toward him, its decayed form illuminated dimly in the light. Tianlei barely has time to react when a zombie lunges at him with a blood-curdling screech. Its half-decayed body jerks unnaturally, driven by hunger. Mustering all his focus, Tianlei grips his axe and swings in one powerful arc. The creature collapses, still twitching as he shoves it aside. Glancing up, he realizes more are closing in, their guttural moans echoing in the narrow alley. Panic flares. He's surrounded. Then he spots a partially open window above, likely his only chance. Without hesitation, Tianlei hoists himself up and tumbles through, landing on a cold tile floor with a thud. As he struggles to his feet, he's astonished to find himself in a school canteen. Stainless steel counters and rows of cookware line the walls, evidence of a normal life gone in an instant. His gaze lands on a rice cooker in the corner. Heart pounding, he opens it and exhales in relief at the sight of fresh, steaming rice. Quickly, he packs as much as he can carry, determined to bring hope back to his friends. Back in their makeshift hideout, Wu Bin and Sitong are consumed by worry. Each footstep outside makes Sitong jump, terrified it's not Tianlei but something worse. Finally, there's a soft knock. Wu Bin rushes to open the door, and Sitong stifles a sob when she sees Tianlei standing there, alive but visibly shaken. She nearly tackles him in a hug, tears betraying her relief. Wu Bin, sighing with relief himself, explains how Sitong was mere moments from charging out to search for him. Placing a comforting hand on her shoulder, Tianlei offers a small apologetic smile. He sets down his bag, revealing fragrant, still warm rice. Sitong's eyes widen, and Wu Bin can't help but grin at the thought of a real meal. They quickly settle on the floor and begin dividing the precious grains. Between bites, Tianlei describes the terrifying scene he just escaped. Zombies are swarming corridors, and scavenging for supplies grows riskier by the minute. Sitong's expression darkens with guilt. She can't help but worry about classmates with nothing to eat. Wu Bin, however, reminds her that if others find out they have food, it could incite jealousy or even violence. Tianlei agrees, warning that in these desperate times, survival instincts can turn people dangerous. Sitong nods, reluctantly accepting the situation. After eating, they store the remaining rice. Tianlei devises a plan to hide it outside the door. Most people won't dare open it if zombies lurk beyond. Wu Bin and Sitong help stash the container, impressed by how simple yet effective the idea is. They soon return to the main hall where the atmosphere is suffocating. Pale, exhausted students huddle in scattered groups, their eyes reflecting hunger and despair. Whispers escalate into arguments, and the tension is palpable. Suddenly, Lin Mu arrives, carrying himself with an air of smug superiority. He surveys the desperate crowd, and a mocking smile spreads across his face as he pretends concern. Sitong shivers, expecting him to bully someone again. Tianlei signals for her to keep still, wanting no part of Lin Mu's drama. However, Lin Mu's gaze drifts to Shen Xinyu, the campus idol admired for her talent and grace. With theatrical generosity, he offers her food and water, loudly proclaiming he can protect her if she moves upstairs with him. Her assistant explains Jinyu is in dire need of supplies, but gently declines Lin Mu's invitation. Lin Mu insists, grabbing Xinyu's hand despite her clear discomfort. When her assistant rushes forward, Lin Mu snarls that he'll kick her if she interferes again. His brazen act sparks gasps throughout the hall. Xinyu, though visibly shaken, summons her resolve. She wrenches her hand free and delivers a sharp, echoing slap across Lin Mu's face. Shock ripples through the bystanders, and Lin Mu's cheeks flush with fury and humiliation. Undeterred, Xinyu throws his food back at his lackey's feet, stating she won't be controlled by handouts. Lin Mu, incensed, fires off insults, calling her a C-list star who's just acting righteous. With a final glare, he stalks off, promising that hunger will eventually force her to beg him for mercy. Xinyu's assistant immediately tends to her, checking the reddened spot on her wrist. Though rattled, Xinyu steadies herself, quietly telling her assistant they can no longer rely on anyone else to help. The exchange leaves a heavy silence in its wake. Amid the tension, Tianlei steps forward, concern evident in his eyes. He softly asks if Xinyu is hurt, prompting the assistant to move protectively between them. Tianlei lifts his hands in reassurance, insisting he means no harm. Reaching into his bag, he pulls out a fair amount of rice and water, the supplies he nearly died to obtain. Suspicion flickers across Xinyu's face, but she can't hide her curiosity. Tianlei clarifies that he expects nothing in return and only wants to help. Placing the food on the ground, he advises them to eat sparingly, warning them not to let anyone else see. The assistant's eyes dart nervously around the hall, but gratitude edges into her expression. Xinyu watches Tianlei with equal parts disbelief and relief as he quietly slips away, disappearing into the crowd without waiting for thanks. On the second floor, Lin Mu paces in a makeshift lounge, still fuming over the slap. One of his lackeys stands by, keeping watch, when Qianhao approaches, bowing his head in deference. He reminds Lin Mu of their past camaraderie, insisting he can be useful. Lin Mu barely conceals his contempt, saying he has enough underlings already. Undeterred, Qianhao turns the topic to Shen Xinyu, emphasizing how she blatantly refused Lin Mu's offer. He prods Lin Mu's anger, suggesting she made a grave mistake. Leaning in, Qianhao proposes a scheme. He claims he can force Xinyu into compliance, making her regret ever defying Lin Mu. Intrigue replaces Lin Mu's rage, and a calculating look crosses his face. He gestures for Qianhao to speak on, the flicker of a twisted grin confirming his interest. Xinyu and her assistant sit quietly, finishing the last bits of food Tianlei gave them. The assistant breaks the silence, asking Xinyu if she knows Tianlei well. Xinyu, chewing thoughtfully, replies, "They're merely schoolmates, with little personal connection." The assistant can't hide her suspicion. Why would he risk so much just to help them when everyone else is desperate? Xinyu, at a loss, can only shake her head. The assistant, her tone turning grim, explains that while the zombies are terrifying, humans have become just as dangerous, especially for vulnerable girls like Xinyu. She points out that Xinyu's beauty, once a source of admiration, now invites unwanted attention. Admitting her own helplessness, the assistant insists they need someone strong to rely on. Horrified, Xinyu refuses to exchange her body for protection. Quickly clarifying, the assistant mentions she wasn't referring to Lin Mu. Then she suggests that maybe Tianlei could keep them safe. Xinyu's cheeks warm at the idea, but she says nothing, and an unspoken tension lingers between them. Meanwhile, Tianlei returns to Wu Bin and Sitong. Sensing a chill in the air, he asks Sitong if something's wrong, only for Wu Bin to give him a knowing grin. With a nudge, Wu Bin accuses Sitong of jealousy, hinting that she resents Tianlei's choice to give food to Shen Xinyu. Tianlei, genuinely confused, looks to Sitong for an explanation, but she fires back at Wu Bin, red-faced with anger. Wu Bin shrugs, teasing Tianlei about his apparent blindness to a girl's feelings. He jokes that no idol could compare to class monitor Sitong, who's both pretty and kind. Before the argument can escalate, an ear-splitting scream rips through the hall. The trio tenses, hearts pounding as they follow the growing commotion. They find a lifeless girl sprawled on the floor, blood darkening the tiles around her. Horrified whispers spread among the onlookers. The victim had been seen going upstairs with Qianhao earlier. Some suggest she jumped to escape torment, while others point to Lin Mu's notorious cruelty. Lin Mu's angry voice booms over the crowd. He calls the girl ungrateful, insisting he gave her food and water in exchange for her service as his woman. Qianhao, grinning, mocks the girl for being so ordinary, that she wasn't even good enough to massage Lin Mu's feet. He dismisses her death with a promise to bring up someone better. Tianlei's fists clench at their callous words. Wu Bin, noticing Tianlei's rage, warns him to stay calm. They're too outnumbered to pick a fight. Trembling with anger, Tianlei steps forward. He silently removes his shirt and drapes it over the girl's body, giving her a shred of dignity in death. Kneeling, he whispers, "May you rest in peace." Then, standing, he fixes Lin Mu with a steely gaze and vows that those responsible for her suffering will face the same fate. Lin Mu explodes in fury, ordering his men to attack, but Qianhao holds him back, pointing out that a mass brawl could turn the other students against them. Lin Mu glares at Tianlei, snarling that one day he'll make him kneel in regret. Night settles in, draping the school in a tense silence. Exhausted students attempt to rest, though fear and hunger gnaw at their nerves. Suddenly, loud bangs jar everyone awake. The thudding grows more frantic, echoing from the main doors. Tianlei jumps to his feet, instinct blazing. Zombies have found a way to the entrance and are hammering on it, desperate to break in. Panic explodes. Some students scream, others freeze. Tianlei's voice cuts through the chaos like a whip. "Shut up and listen. If you lose it now, we'll all die." He directs the boys to push heavy shelves and the girls to stack chairs against the door. Despite their terror, the students rally under his urgent orders. Just as things seem under control, a hair-raising shriek rings out. Heads whip around to see the bloodied girl from earlier begin to convulse. She slowly rises, joints twisting in unnatural angles. She's reanimating as a zombie. Horror washes over the students. Some can barely comprehend how a corpse could stand again. Wu Bin mutters something about delayed infections, while Sitong stares, disbelief widening her eyes. With uncanny speed, the newly risen zombie lunges at a nearby student who trips in fear. Tianlei intervenes in a flash, his axe cutting through the air and striking the zombie down. A deafening crash then reverberates from the back hallway. The doors burst open, releasing a swarm of zombies into the main hall. Their growls fill the space, sending students into a frenzy. Tianlei shouts for Wu Bin to protect Saitong as the undead flood the room. Screams fill the corridors. Many students, seized by panic, charge blindly upstairs, straight into Lin Mu's territory. Others are caught in the mass of bodies, trampled or snatched by grasping zombie hands. The floors become slick with blood as the undead tear into the unfortunate stragglers. In the chaos, Xinyu is separated from her assistant, Sister Hua. Pushed and shoved by the scrambling mob, Xinyu finds herself alone, fear constricting her breath. She's about to fall when someone's hand clamps firmly around her own. She turns startled to see Tianlei, face set with determined focus. Over the roar of screams, he locks eyes with her and shouts a single command: "Follow me!" Upstairs, a desperate crowd hammers on the curator's office door, begging for sanctuary. But inside, Lin Mu and Qian Hao have barricaded themselves with their cronies, refusing to open up. Lin Mu's cold voice slithers through the door, telling the students to go elsewhere. Tianlei firmly takes Xinyu's hand, his voice steady as he warns her that heading upstairs will trap them with the zombies and guarantee certain death. Though anxious, Xinyu is reassured by his calm confidence and agrees to trust him. They weave through the chaotic crowd of students, the groans of the undead growing louder as panic spreads. Spotting Sitong and Wu Bin near a door in the hallway, Tianlei quickly leads Xinyu over to them. Together, they slip through the doorway into a dimly lit hall and sprint forward, adrenaline fueling their every step. Wu Bin suddenly shouts, spotting a door ahead and calling out that it could be an exit. Hope flares in the group as Tianlei pushes the door open with a loud bang, but their excitement is crushed when the door reveals only a men's restroom. The group freezes in dismay. Wu Bin looks flustered, while Hu's frustration erupts. "How can we end up in a bathroom at a time like this?" she cries, her voice trembling. Tears well up in her eyes as she mutters that dying in a bathroom would be the most humiliating way to go. Their nerves fray as loud banging echoes from the hallway. Zombies are closing in. Tianlei quickly assesses the situation, noting that if the undead are already inside, the area outside might still be clear. Spotting a high window near the ceiling, he lifts Wu Bin to take a look. Wu Bin glances out, confirming the area is clear and spotting a car in the playground. Tianlei sends Wu Bin through first, telling him to prepare to catch the others. Wu Bin lands safely outside, calling up for the rest to follow. Tianlei turns to Xinyu next. She looks at him nervously, but steps forward, thanking him quietly for staying by her side. Blushing slightly, Tianlei keeps his focus and carefully helps her through the window. The assistant follows soon after, teasing Tianlei with a playful remark about taking advantage of the situation, leaving him momentarily flustered before she climbs out. Both are helped down by Wu Bin. Now only Sitong remains. She hesitates, concern etched on her face as she tells Tianlei the window is too high and asks how he plans to escape. Tianlei remains composed, reassuring her that he'll find a way. However, Sitong refuses to move until he explains how. The banging on the barricade grows louder, the door splintering under the relentless force of the zombies. Tianlei's tone sharpens. "If you stay, you'll just slow me down. You're no class monitor here. Go, before it's too late," he snaps, his serious expression cutting through her resistance. Tears welling in her eyes, Sitong reluctantly agrees but steps closer to him first. Her voice softens as she leans in, kissing him on the cheek. Tianlei's eyes widen in surprise as she whispers, "I like you. Promise me you'll survive." His expression hardens with determination, and he nods. "I will." Sitong climbs onto the windowsill, but she lingers, tears slipping down her cheeks. The barricade suddenly gives way with a deafening crash, and zombies flood into the bathroom, their twisted faces snarling. Without hesitation, Tianlei throws himself at the door, using every ounce of strength to hold back the horde. His muscles strain as he pushes against the tide of rotting bodies. their icy, blood-streaked hands reaching for him. Gritting his teeth, he blocks their advance, their twisted faces pressing closer. From outside, Sitong's desperate voice cuts through the chaos. Tianlei, she screams, her eyes wide with panic, as she watches him struggle to keep the undead at bay. Go, Tianlei shouts, his voice cutting through the chaos. Sitong trembles but finally lets go, jumping down. She lands roughly on the ground, stumbling as Wu Bin and the others rush over to pull her to her feet. From above, Tianlei yells, "Leave without me! Get out of here!" The group makes a break for the car. Inside the bathroom, Tianlei stands his ground as the undead swarm him. Grotesque hands claw at him, forcing him back. His breath hitches as despair threatens to overwhelm him. Sorry, Sitong, he mutters under his breath. I can't keep my promise, but then his eyes sharpen. No, I can't fall now. He jumps back, grabbing his axe with renewed resolve. With a guttural yell, he charges at the horde, swinging with all his might. Zombies fall one after another as blood splatters across the walls, but Tianlei doesn't stop. His determination burns brighter than his exhaustion. Meanwhile, the group reaches the car. Sitong scrambles into the front seat, while Hu and Xinyu climb into the back. The atmosphere is thick with tension. Sitong spins around, tears streaming down her face. We have to wait for him, she demands, her voice breaking. Wu Bin grips the steering wheel tightly, his own face pale with fear. He told us to leave, he exclaims, his voice trembling but firm. If we stay, we're all dead. Do you think he'd want that? Sitong hesitates, her protests faltering as Wu Bin's words sink in. Overcome by emotion, she slumps back against the seat, her shoulders shaking as quiet sobs escape her. Hugh and Xinyu glance at each other, worry etched into their faces. Wu Bin starts the engine, and the car speeds off into the rain-soaked night. As the storm intensifies, the school grows eerily silent. Inside the bathroom, zombie corpses litter the floor, a grim testament to the fierce battle that took place. Bloodstains cover the walls, and the broken barricade hints at the violence of the struggle. Out on the rain-soaked track, a lone figure staggers forward. Tianlei. His clothes are torn and drenched, his body battered and bleeding, yet he presses on, dragging his axe behind him. Each step is a monumental effort, exhaustion pulling at him until he collapses to his knees. The axe slips from his fingers, landing in a puddle of blood and rain. The ring on his finger flares ominously, pulsing with a dark glow. A voice echoes in his mind, warning him that the biovirus has infected him. He's moments away from turning into the very monsters he fought so desperately to defeat. With trembling hands, he activates the ring's storage, retrieving a syringe filled with glowing green liquid. Fear gnaws at him. What if the serum doesn't work? Or worse, what if it turns him into something far more monstrous? But the infection is spreading fast, and he has no time to hesitate. Summoning his last shred of courage, Tianlei injects the liquid into his arm. For a moment, nothing happens. Then agony tears through him, forcing a guttural scream from his throat. His muscles spasm violently, and his vision blurs as his body writhes in pain. The rain mixes with his cries, masking his struggle as the serum battles the virus within him. The storm rages on, a relentless downpour as Tianlei fights against the darkness threatening to consume him. The morning sun rises, revealing the track soaked from the previous night's storm. Tianlei lies unconscious, motionless on the ground. Slowly, his eyes flutter open, and he breathes a sigh of relief, realizing he has survived. Checking his body, he's amazed to find no visible wounds or mutations. The ring's warning had been true. The system activates again, cheerfully correcting him to address it as virtual god. Tianlei obliges, and the system congratulates him on evolving to a new stage of strength, presenting his updated stats. Strength 18, agility 16, defense 17, life recovery 18. Momentarily excited by his improvement, Tianlei wonders if he has truly become powerful. The system quickly tempers his enthusiasm, explaining the ranking system for evolvers, from privates to generals, and revealing that Tianlei barely ranks as a private. Examples of the vast gap between ranks dampen his excitement, and he grows frustrated, questioning why humanity's supposed savior starts so weak. The system elaborates on the experience system, stating he must kill zombies to earn points and rise through the ranks. Though daunted by the high threshold for promotion, Tianlei reluctantly accepts it. Pleas to lower the requirements are swiftly dismissed by the system, which declares itself fair and encourages him to fight for humanity. Left alone with his thoughts, Tianlei decides to test his newfound strength. Spotting a stone pillar nearby, he charges at it, delivering a powerful blow that shatters it into fragments. Stunned by the display of raw power, he smiles briefly, wondering how Wu Bin would react to seeing this. However, the memory of recent events quickly sobers him. With the zombies cleared out, Tianlei explores the library. The place is in disarray, with overturned chairs and scattered books hinting at the chaos that unfolded. Navigating through the wreckage, he finds a well-maintained room, the former hideout of Lin Mu and his gang. Tianlei notes its luxuries, from comfortable furniture to supplies. Seeing an opportunity, he takes a refreshing shower, letting the tension of the past wash away. Afterward, feeling reinvigorated, Tianlei sits on the couch and turns on the television. The broadcast outlines the devastating effects of the biovirus and its global spread, but also provides some reassurance. The government and military are establishing safe zones for survivors. Though grim, the update offers a glimmer of hope. Suddenly, a strange noise interrupts his thoughts. On alert, Tianlei grabs his axe and approaches a closet. Swinging the door open, he finds a frightened girl curled up inside. She screams, begging him not to eat her, mistaking him for a zombie. Tianlei quickly calms her, assuring her he isn't a threat. Slowly, she processes his words, realizing he's human. Relief washes over her, and she breaks down, sobbing uncontrollably. Tianlei gently asks her name and why she's hiding. Introducing herself as Chen Yao, an art student, she recounts her terrifying ordeal. She and her friend had come to the library to borrow books, unaware of the outbreak. As chaos erupted, they hid, terrified, until a senior named Qian Hao offered to take them to Lin Mu's group for safety. Trusting him, they followed, but were thrown into a dangerous situation. Lin Mu and his men attempted to assault them, driving Cheng Yao's friend to jump from the building in despair. Listening, Tianlei realizes her friend was the girl he had seen fall the day before. Cheng Yao explains how she ended up in the closet. After zombies breached the office, she stayed hidden while Lin Mu and his group tried to escape by climbing down with a makeshift rope. When the rope snapped, she was too scared to jump and locked herself in the closet, waiting for rescue. Tianlei feels a mix of sadness for Cheng Yao and anger toward Lin Mu. Changing the topic, she asks for his name. When he introduces himself as Zhao Tianlei, she connects the dots, realizing he had stood up to Lin Mu earlier. She admires his bravery, but Tianlei humbly brushes it off, joking that it wasn't a big deal. She lightens the mood with a playful remark about how different he looks now, noting that his lack of clothes earlier caught her off guard. Embarrassed, Tianlei quickly grabs a pillow to cover himself and hurriedly puts on a shirt. He notices her weary appearance and asks if she's eaten. She admits she hasn't, and he offers her bread and water. They share a brief but light-hearted conversation as she thanks him for his kindness. After eating, she nervously asks if she can take a shower, explaining how dirty she feels after everything she's endured. Tianlei reassures her that she's free to do what she needs, and she heads into the bathroom, grateful for the chance to clean up. When Cheng Yao finishes her shower, she steps out with damp hair draped over her shoulders. She sees Tianlei sitting on the couch, lost in thought. Her gaze lingers on him, and despite herself, a faint blush colors her cheeks as she watches him quietly from the doorway. Chen Yao joined Tianlei on the couch, still visibly shaken. Noticing her distress, Tianlei awkwardly tried to comfort her by offering more food. She quietly accepted, but as she looked at the bread, tears streamed down her face again. Surprised, Tianlei lightly teased her, calling her a crybaby, but quickly softened when she began to open up. Between sobs, she blamed herself for her friend's death, recalling how her friend had jumped in despair after Lin Mu and his gang tried to assault them. Tianlei reassured her gently, telling her it wasn't her fault. He emphasized that her friend's fate was already sealed when she became infected, and pointed out that the real culprits were Qian Hao and Lin Mu. As Chen Yao leaned on him, she admitted she felt lost and scared about what to do next. Sensing her vulnerability, Tianlei told her about the government's broadcast and the survivor bases being established. He invited her to join him, adding that they could reach safety together. She hesitated for a moment, unsure if his offer was genuine, but Tianlei smiled warmly and confirmed that she was welcome to come with him. Relieved, Chen Yao agreed, saying she would stay by his side. Wanting to help her feel more comfortable, Tianlei retrieved clothes he had found earlier and offered them to her. As he handed them over, Chen Yao suddenly leaned forward and kissed him. Tianlei froze, completely caught off guard, his mind racing. Before he could react, Chen Yao confidently declared that she would dedicate herself to him as repayment for saving her life. Stumbling over his words, Tianlei dismissed her statement, insisting she shouldn't act like this was some scene from a drama. But Chen Yao remained sincere, boldly stating that unless he hated her, she would stay by his side. Flustered, Tianlei was left speechless, his face reddening. Noticing his embarrassment, Chen Yao leaned closer, asking why he was blushing. Her curiosity turned into realization, and with a mischievous smile, she asked if this was his first kiss. Tianlei, mortified, clumsily tried to deny it, claiming he'd been kissed by relatives plenty of times. Chen Yao smirked knowingly, clearly not convinced. Their moment was interrupted by a sudden shout for help. Both turned toward the sound, which was coming from the school's broadcasting room. Chen Yao asked if Tianlei planned to help, and his resolve was clear. "I can't ignore it," he said firmly. In the broadcasting room, a group of students huddled together, panicking as zombies pounded relentlessly on the door. Their cries for help echoed through the school. Just as hope began to fade, someone noticed Tianlei outside, perched on a tree branch and signaling for them to be quiet. The students cautiously opened the window, and Tianlei instructed them to keep their voices down, explaining the danger of attracting more zombies. He pulled a rope from his backpack and directed them to secure it to something stable for their escape. The survivors tied the rope to a sturdy fixture, and the first person climbed down safely. Chen Yao helped guide the others to the ground while Tianlei ensured the descent went smoothly. As more students descended, the situation grew tense. When it was Li Yalai's turn, fear overtook him, and he struggled to keep his grip. His hands gave out, and he fell to the ground, crying out in pain. The sharp noise shattered the fragile silence, drawing the zombies' attention. The undead turned toward the group, their growls growing louder. Panic surged as Tianlei ordered everyone to run. They sprinted toward a nearby car, but chaos erupted as the group fought over the limited space inside. Frustrated, Tianlei grabbed Li Yalai and demanded he let the girls board first. Yalai refused, screaming that it wasn't his fault and blaming the others for their situation. The students turned on him, accusing him of attracting the zombies. Chen Yao, observing the chaos, urged Tianlei to let the group go without her, insisting she'd rather stay with him. Tianlei hesitated but firmly told her she needed to leave for her safety. She argued that the group was unreliable, fighting among themselves and showing no loyalty even after being saved. She pleaded to stay with him instead. As the zombies drew closer, Tianlei made his decision. With a cold expression, he shoved Yelai aside and barked at the group to leave. "Ungrateful fools," he muttered, his voice laced with anger. The students scrambled into the car, and the teacher with them apologized hurriedly before speeding off, leaving Tianlei and Chen Yao behind. Grabbing her hand, Tianlei led Chen Yao as they ran, desperately searching for safety. They eventually stumbled upon a convenience store and locked themselves inside. As they caught their breath, Chen Yao decided to cook for Tianlei, using what she could find in the store. She prepared a meal with sausages, fish balls, and other frozen ingredients, arranging it neatly. Tianlei was surprised and touched by her effort. When he tasted the food, he complimented her, amazed by how good it was. As he invited her to join him, Chen Yao casually responded, "I'm just taking care of my man." Her bold statement made Tianlei choke on his food, spitting it out in shock. He scolded her, telling her not to say such things so lightly, but Chen Yao didn't back down. She reminded him of her promise to devote herself to him as repayment. Setting down his chopsticks, Tianlei looked at her seriously. Gently gripping her shoulders, he told her that saving her was the right thing to do and that she owed him nothing. But Chen Yao remained resolute. She acknowledged his words, but insisted that she wanted to stay by his side. Taking a step closer, she leaned in and tried kissing him again, her eyes steady and sincere. In a soft voice, she confessed, "I like you. I want to be your girl." As Chen Yao leaned in for a kiss, Tianlei quickly stopped her, placing his hand between them to create distance. Caught off guard, Chen Yao hesitated and asked if he hated her. Tianlei reassured her that wasn't the case, but admitted after some hesitation that his heart already belonged to someone else. Surprised, Chen Yao pressed for details, and Tianlei revealed it was Shen Xinyu, the school's superstar. Hearing this, Chen Yao assumed Shen Xinyu must be his girlfriend, but Tianlei, flustered, dismissed the idea, explaining that she was completely out of his league, and he simply admired her from afar. Sensing his insecurity, Chen Yao tried to lighten the mood, awkwardly stumbling over her words. Regaining her composure, she reminded Tianlei that in their current world, wealth and status no longer mattered. Everyone, regardless of their background, was reduced to surviving the same way, with zombies treating all equally as prey. She predicted that with Tianlei's abilities, he would naturally attract attention, not just from people in need of a leader, but also from many girls. Her tone grew serious as she shared how strength had become the sole measure of survival. She explained the harsh reality for women, who often had no choice but to rely on men for protection, or else risk death or worse. With a heartfelt declaration, Chen Yao told Tianlei she had decided to stay with him, no matter what. If he didn't want her as his girlfriend, she offered to take any role just to remain by his side, even a side chick or a maid, willing to cook and clean for him. Her sincerity left Tianlei stunned, his face flushing as he quickly told her to stop talking nonsense. He promised to protect her regardless, assuring her she didn't have to repay him in any way. Hearing his words, Chen Yao's eyes lit up with hope. Before he could say more, she leaned in and kissed his neck. Tianlei froze, cheeks burning, as Chen Yao casually teased him, saying it wasn't a kiss on the lips. To his dismay, his nose started bleeding, prompting Chen Yao to burst into laughter, calling him adorable. Pushing past the embarrassment, the pair moved toward the convenience store's garage, discovering a collection of luxury cars. Tianlei marveled at the wealth of the store's owner, but Chen Yao redirected his attention to a sleek SUV. She highlighted its practicality, noting its spacious interior and powerful engine, making it ideal for their journey. Tianlei agreed, and they set out in the SUV. As they sped through a forested road, Chen Yao gripped the wheel with surprising confidence, her excitement evident. She reveled in the thrill of driving, sharing how she'd always dreamed of a high-speed ride on the open road. Tianlei, struggling with his seatbelt amidst her rapid maneuvers, joked about how an art student could drive so well. Smiling, she explained her dream had become reality even amid the chaos. Meanwhile, Tianlei unfolded a map trying to deduce their destination based on the limited information from the interrupted broadcast. Suddenly, three figures darted onto the road, waving their arms frantically. Chen Yao slammed on the brakes, the car screeching to a halt. Tianlei and Chen Yao were momentarily stunned as the strangers approached, pleading for help. One of them, desperate, accused them of being heartless if they refused, claiming zombies were closing in. Torn between caution and compassion, Tianlei and Chen Yao exchanged glances before deciding to let the group in, hoping it wasn't a mistake. Inside the car, the strangers introduced themselves. The blonde-haired woman introduced her green-haired brother and her red-haired boyfriend, explaining they'd been stranded when their car broke down. The woman's energy and chatter stood in stark contrast to their dire circumstances. She cheekily asked if Tianlei and Chen Yao were a couple, earning a wide smile from Chen Yao, while Tianlei dismissed the question, telling her to focus on driving. When the woman asked about the SUV, insinuating they might have stolen it, Tianlei curtly replied that it wasn't her business. Despite her probing, he remained guarded. The blonde woman noticed Tianlei's bag and asked if it contained food, offering her watch in exchange. Tianlei refused, stating material goods were meaningless in their world, still handed over some food. The green-haired boy demanded more, eyeing the size of Tianlei's bag, but Chen Yao intervened, firmly reminding them to be grateful. The boy's irritation flared, but the blonde woman quickly calmed him, urging him not to be greedy. Tianlei, growing suspicious, silently observed their behavior. The drive took a grim turn when they came upon a wrecked vehicle surrounded by carnage. Chen Yao, horrified, asked if it belonged to their teacher. Tianlei confirmed, explaining that their panic likely led to the crash. As they passed safely, the strangers exchanged silent glances, hinting at ulterior motives. Breaking the tension, the blonde woman suggested avoiding downtown, claiming it was likely overrun with zombies. Her calculated tone confirmed Tianlei's suspicion that they wanted to stick around longer and take advantage of their resources. Tianlei's patience ran out. He stopped the car and told the group to get off, suggesting they continue on their own. Tensions reached a peak when the green-haired boy suddenly pulled a gun, his face twisted with malice. "Do as I say, or else," he barked, aiming at Tianlei. Chen Yao gasped, recoiling as the situation escalated. Tianlei, though shocked, remained calm, demanding to know their true intentions. The blonde woman smiled coldly, claiming they were just survivors trying to make it through. She warned Tianlei to comply for his own good, casually hinting at her brother's dangerous nature. Her boyfriend chimed in, backing her up and emphasizing the consequences of resistance. The green-haired boy, impatient, waved his gun, threatening Tianlei further. Annoyed, the blonde smacked him on the head, scolding him about ruining the car seats and attracting zombies with blood. Turning to Chen Yao, the blonde's smile darkened. She instructed her to pull over, subtly threatening Tianlei's life if she refused. The situation had shifted from bad to worse, and Tianlei prepared himself for whatever came next. Chen Yao's face was filled with turmoil as she debated her options. Give up the car and risk facing hordes of zombies, or comply with their demands and let Tianlei get killed. Her heart raced as neither option seemed viable, yet there was no clear path forward. Tianlei, calm and composed despite the tension, raised his hand to silence her thoughts. He addressed the three, stating firmly that they would leave but expected them to honor their word. The blonde girl, with a sickly sweet smile, agreed to his terms. Tianlei then directed Cheng Yao to pull over, and despite her unease, she complied, slowing the car to a halt by the roadside. As they stepped out, leaving behind the car and food as demanded, an unexpected command froze them in place. The green-haired boy, speaking with a sinister edge, ordered Cheng Yao to stay while Tianlei could leave. The shock in Cheng Yao's eyes mirrored her fear as she stared at the group. The boyfriend, clearly unsettled by this demand, questioned the green-haired boy's motives. He argued that Cheng Yao would be a burden in their survival efforts. However, the green-haired boy dismissed him, smirking as he revealed his true intentions. He stated that, unlike the boyfriend who had his sister for companionship, he was alone and desired a woman. He openly admitted to wanting Cheng Yao to stay with him, commenting on her beauty and implying that she could serve his needs during their journey. Cheng Yao's panic turned into tears as she looked at Tianlei, pleading for him to save her. Tianlei stood still, his head lowered. His face remained unreadable, his expression hidden in shadows. Tianlei, sensing the dire nature of the situation, grabbed Cheng Yao's hand and began walking away, intending to leave the hostile group behind. However, the green-haired man, seething with rage at being defied, stormed out of the car. He demanded to know how Tianlei dared to go against him, pulling a gun and aiming it at Tianlei's head. The tension thickened as the man threatened to end Tianlei's life right then and there. In a split-second move, Tianlei turned and swung his axe with deadly precision, severing the green-haired man's arm before he could even pull the trigger. Blood spurted from the wound as the man screamed in agony, unable to comprehend how quickly the tables had turned. Tianlei, cold and composed, questioned mockingly whether the man thought a single bullet could kill him. The blonde woman and her mohawk-wearing boyfriend immediately sprang into action. The boyfriend pulled out a gun while the blonde wielded a knife, their desperation clear as they charged at Tianlei. Cheng Yao, overwhelmed with fear, cried out a warning for Tianlei to be careful, but her concern was unnecessary. Tianlei was already in motion, his sharp instincts guiding his every move. Without hesitation, Tianlei hurled his axe with incredible force and accuracy, embedding it into the boyfriend's head. The man fell lifelessly to the ground, his weapon useless. Tianlei then dashed toward the severed hand of the green-haired man, retrieving the fallen gun with lightning speed. As the blonde woman raised her knife to attack, Tianlei fired a single, precise shot that knocked the weapon from her grasp, leaving her disarmed and stunned. In a matter of moments, Tianlei had dismantled the threat with a combination of skill, speed, and unflinching determination. The once confident group now lay incapacitated, their plans shattered and their arrogance destroyed. Tianlei stood amidst the tension, astonished at his own speed and precision. He pondered if this newfound ability was due to the fluid of evolution that had been injected into him earlier. His enhanced body senses and rapid reflexes were unparalleled, giving him an edge he hadn't expected. Meanwhile, the blonde woman, battered and desperate, begged for her life, justifying her actions as mere survival. Her younger brother clutched his wounded arm, groaning in pain. Tianlei coldly countered her pleas, remarking how selfish it was to prioritize one's survival while sacrificing others. The biting truth of his words left the woman speechless, a tinge of regret flashing across her face. Desperation oozed from the blonde as she clung to a new strategy. She meekly admitted, "I'm just a woman. What else can I do?" Her eyes filled with fake tears as she tried to evoke pity. But her tone shifted as she explained her past, saying she and her brother were forced into their actions under the now dead boyfriend. She begged for a chance to be forgiven and promised to do whatever Tianlei wanted. Chen Yao looked on in disgust, calling out the blonde's shameless behavior, unable to believe the audacity of her words. Tianlei, ever perceptive, asked her directly if she was truly willing to do anything. The blonde eagerly nodded, emphasizing her compliance. "Of course! Anything you want," she exclaimed, throwing herself at him with fake charm. She went on to insult Chen Yao indirectly, claiming Tianlei deserved someone more experienced and alluring, like her, rather than a young, inexperienced girl. Her attempt to seduce Tianlei was blatant as she promised to serve him and ensure he enjoyed her company thoroughly. Tianlei's eyes narrowed as he stared at her, his tone chillingly calm. "Okay, I promise I won't kill you," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. The blonde lit up for a moment, thinking her ploy had worked. His next words were directed at the blonde. "But I don't need you to do anything," he said flatly, brushing her off without hesitation. The final blow came as Tianlei grabbed Chen Yao's hand, pulling her closer. He told the blonde that she and her brother could stay behind to enjoy the company of the zombies that were sure to be attracted by the earlier gunshots. "You two may stay here for them, to enjoy a wonderful time," he said coldly, walking away with Chen Yao. The blonde froze, her manipulative smile vanishing as the reality of her situation dawned on her. As the car sped away, the blonde woman cried out desperately, begging them to stop and wait for her. She stumbled as the distant sound of growling grew louder. A massive swarm of zombies appeared on the horizon, drawn by the commotion. They closed in on the woman and her companions, who had no way to escape. Their screams of terror echoed through the open road as they were overwhelmed by the relentless horde. The sight faded from view as the car continued forward, us leaving the chaos behind. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this, make sure to like, subscribe, and comment part 2 if you want to see more. See you in the next one.